I was obsessed with Resist from the moment I read about it on Space Biff's blog when Salt and Pepper Games debuted about 3 years ago. In 2022, I was making friends with the fact that I'd be playing more games without friends if I wanted to stop being bitter, find a new way to access the beauty of a game spread out on a table. Resist looked like a beautiful way to do that. Between his work with the Valiant Defense series and solo designs for Salt and Pepper Games, seems like Thompson likes a good underdog story to give gameplay extra juice. Here he, along with co-designers Trevor Benjamin and Roger Tankersley, gave solo players a chance to reignite a chapter of the fierce and doomed attempts to undo General Franco's 1930s military coup in Spain, which set off a 3-year civil war. This subject matter ignited thrilling neural pathways, strains of the Clash's Spanish bombs, memories of a book I read about the making of Picasso's Guernica, scenes from Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls and Orwell's Homage to Catalonia. Resist is set during a war, but like 2015's The Grizzled, isn't centered on the mechanics of shoot, move, maneuver. Resist abstracts all that and instead sets you before a poignant series of keenly dangerous roster management and target selection puzzles, whose actors and targets are rendered in the dusky mauves and rusts of Spanish illustrator Albert Monteys' pen and inks. It looks like I also get the opportunity through this game to dive into the frame of a Tintin adventure. My fighters are Spanish maquis who fled to southern France during the Civil War, acquired sabotage and guerrilla warfare skills during the German occupation, then snuck back into Spain to fuck with General Franco's tradfash regime even after his military officially won the Civil War. I carried a lot with me to my first play. Resist hit my mailbox right at the end of a vicious 3-day sick. It stole one of September's sweetest golden weeks from me. I was emotionally grated. My whole self was a raw nerve when I got this to the table. What the hell was I doing, trying to take comfort in playpen resistance in a rural memory of a town just a few miles south of the place where the resistors met the guns of the Colorado militia and the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency and got shot at and burned up without one demand being met. My skin ached and my heart was brittle and angry. But I kept on because I still wanted into this story and its system. I've noticed that within the mechanical loop of what you're asked to do on a turn, a different world, similar to and evocative of its real-life source but imbued with its own sustaining hermetic inertia, emerges alongside and within the formal confines of the game. Playing with yourself is not resistance, but it did provide moments of transcendence. It created a space where I could work with my little cartoon guerrilla fighters. Just the same, I felt like bawling when I had to sacrifice Ricardo on the first mission. There's one mechanic that persistently links the headline world, our world, with the world inside the box. It's the evocative mechanical dilemma at the heart of it. You're commanding guerrillas who must strike and melt away if they don't want to get hunted down, or get half the people in the village where they get supplies lined up and shot. The operatives at your disposal have names like Sagrario, Ricardo, Anastasio, Manuel, and 20 others, each of which have a 2-sided card. One shows you what they can get done while preserving their cover. The other side of their card is much more powerful, but Franco's spies and security forces are going to know who they are if you use that ability. Turn 1, it looked like I'd be able to blow up the target bridge, but Ricardo, one of the 4 sent out for the job, was going to get his fingernails torn out by the secret police or something. How many maquis prayed while huddling in some mountain cave that a blown operative was lucky enough to get shot in action rather than finish their time tied to a chair somewhere, coughing up teeth and secrets? Game strategy that tips this seesaw of consequences are more subtle than I just suggested. Your maquis cards do more than sneak, snip, wire, bomb, and ambush. Some of their effects help bring new members into the group, ferret out spies, boost other cards, and deliver intel on target locales. There's more than one kind of trade-off to weigh, especially when you consider there are up to 4 missions in play at once, each of which has its own garrison of enemy cards on the lookout for your fuckery. Engineers, grunts, spy masters, soldiers, and more are on high alert at each barracks or bridge you want to attack. And each unit type triggers effects that either make your attack more risky or result in bloody reprisal on both your fighters and local civilians if you don't have enough firepower to take them down. The first time I saw how much there was to think about on a mission, I just froze. But it was my first play, so I freed myself from calculating all the angles for the initial raids and focused on the steps of the turns, which were velvety smooth because the rulebook is excellent. I stormed a series of level 1 missions in high style, launching big raids that wiped out the garrisons and smashed the targets, which was a tremendous lark until the harder missions started rolling out and I realized I'd lost too many maquis. There were more spies diluting my roster, and I was in deep trouble. Antonio, Manuel, Manuela, Juana, Anastasio, Sagrario, Soledad, and Marcelino had already been captured, killed, or gone to ground somewhere. My last turn of the night consisted only of me drumming the table with my fingers, exhaling loudly through my nose, staring back and forth between my hand and the missions, looking for some magical seam through the mid-game that wasn't there. I only had 3 fighters for the mission. I'd scouted 2 locations, and the garrisons guarding each were pure murder. I was already looking at the end. Now, the end here, in terms of gameplay, can come a few different ways. If you fail 2 missions, get too many civilians killed, or your talent pool gets so infested with spies that you draw a whole handful of them, you trigger an immediate loss. The win? It's kind of up to you. You can decide to deactivate your maquis and close out the resistance at the end of any turn if you decide your cadre of guerrillas is too diminished to continue without being wiped out altogether. Almost any solid effort will win you a forgiving draw in the end-of-game win rating system, but the outcomes grade up from there all the way to epic win and a historical trophy where you actually succeed in toppling Franco. We can dream, can't we? A draw is what I had to settle for my first time out. After a dinner break, I looked at the mid-game situation again, took down one more target for pride, then had my plucky cartoon squad hang it up. From a gameplay standpoint, I want more of this. The lucid setup diagram and game steps glide you right up that first few yards of trail, giving you just enough of a taste of action to want to scale up the well-guarded height of that much meaner mid-game. I want to explore the subtleties and power of the card effects. Plus, I've learned enough about the bastards who guard the targets to crave a second run at them. My read on this game, since its release, feels 100% dead on. This will get played more and reported on in the future. Reflecting on my first game, I linger on the ache of something else fragile, beautiful, and necessary that Resist serves up at the tender junction of the imaginative and the historical, and that's the power of hidden places. The idea that there's somewhere to melt away from the sweeping gaze of men who crave omniscience, both for themselves and to sell to the government. These kinds of spaces, even when they're in the hands of a Bond villain on an island in a movie, have always intrigued me. They're psychic, mythological, and ecological counterweights, quasi-political wildernesses of liberty and privacy that can never be wholly tamed, patrolled, or surveilled. No fascist dictator can gain or hold their position without the backing of the industrialists and financiers. Today is no different, except for the prominence and loudness of the digital-era moguls in that cohort, men whose businesses' share price hinges on knowing everything while making nothing we really couldn't do without if it were gone tomorrow. To hear them talk, permanent closure of hidden space, not only something to be celebrated, it's a fait accompli. For them, I reserve my favorite gypsy curse from the pages of For Whom the Bell Tolls. I shit in the milk of the whores that birthed you.